Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military of Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 24th of July of 2025. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Kiev. More precisely, we're going to talk about Zelenskyy, the president of Ukraine. During the previous 24 hours we had lots of very interesting statements about him. And first let's talk about the European Union. Ursula von der Leyen demands explanations from Zelenskyy. This follows the restrictions imposed on the independence of Ukraine's two main anti-corruption agencies, NABU and SAPO. Von der Leyen expressed deep concerns over this development and its potential consequences. German foreign minister rushed to Kiev to meet the anti-corruption head. The restriction of the independence of the Ukrainian anti-corruption agency burdens the path of Ukraine into the European Union. I expect Ukraine to consistently continue to fight against corruption. Therefore, I also met with the heads of NABU and SAPO in Kiev. Zelenskyy must resign. So this is the statement, this is the article that was published today in the Telegraph. Zelenskyy played an epic role in saving his country from destruction. Now there is a danger that he will follow the example of former presidents of Ukraine, and he should resign for the sake of Ukraine. He believes that the election of a new president could even bring peace closer. A new Ukrainian president would mark a moment of reboot, especially if he or she were willing to defend the rights of the Russian-speaking population of Ukraine, which is a key demand of the Kremlin and paradoxically the European Union. So as you can see, the situation for Zelenskyy is very difficult. The Financial Times, the Russia appears to have been sparked by investigations into members of Zelenskyy's circles. So the Western countries believe, and the Western political believe, that Zelenskyy made everything with NABU and SAPO because they found something about him and about his inner circle. But of course Zelenskyy is trying to find a solution how to escape this situation, and he promised a new anti-corruption bill, but he still insists state agencies need to be purged out of Russian influence. By saying purged of Russian influences, he says that he must control these anti-corruption offices by himself personally. So which means there is going to be no independence for these anti-corruption agencies. So the situation for him is very difficult, and as we discussed during the previous 24 hours, lots of protests were recorded all over the entire territory of Ukraine. As this video that you can see right now in front of your screens took place yesterday in the evening of the 23rd of July of 2025. So by the time I started making this video, we still haven't received anything that can confirm whether the Ukrainians are going to start another protest this evening on the 24th of July of 2025. But most likely we're going to understand this from, let's say, later, and most likely this upcoming night or tomorrow in the morning we're going to receive additional videos that will confirm whether the Ukrainians are going to continue their protests or not. And because this is very important, and most likely Zelenskyy doesn't like this situation as well. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the most important direction during the previous 24 hours. We're going to talk about the Pokrovsk agglomeration and the Constantinovka direction. First of all, and the most important, the Ukrainian authorities announced the evacuation of Kramatorsk. Authorities urged residents of Kramatorsk to leave the city. The Ukrainian armed forces have long made the occupied city of Dnipro their rear base. That was stated by pro-Russian resource. There are currently about 53,000 people in Kramatorsk. Leave, take care of yourself. The situation in the region is becoming more and more difficult every day. That was stated by the head of the Donetsk Regional Military Administration. So as you can see, the situation is getting worse and worse for the Ukrainians. The Russians are trying to push Ukrainians to attack them with media and so on. At the same time, the Russians are not just pushing the Ukrainians in the media. During the previous 24 hours, a very powerful breakthrough was recorded in the Constantinovka direction. And this breakthrough is coming from the area of the Kliban-Byksky pocket. So as you can see, we have adjusted the map in the southwestern part of the pocket and in the southeastern pocket as well. So let's start with the southwestern pocket. Let's compare the map between the dates. So for example, this is the situation by the end of the the 23rd of July of 2025. So as you can see, the eastern, probably in the main part of Yablunovka, was under strong control of the armored forces of Ukraine. Just several mappers reported that the Russians improved their positions in the fields and got closer to the settlement itself. But by the end of the 24th of July, we got the video which confirms Russian control over this territory, and the Ukrainians most likely were forced to fall back further in the northern direction. And this is the video we are talking about. In this video, we can see how exactly the Russians were attacking and fighting for the settlement of Yablunovka. In this video, we can see lots of episodes how the Russians were attacking, bombing the settlement. And as usually in the final part of this video, we could see lots of flags raised all over the entire territory of the settlement of Yablunovka. Based on this video and based on these flags, we adjusted the map and colored the entire territory, almost the entire territory, under complete Russian control. So during this video, at least 2 or 3 or 4 flags were raised, and 2 of them were geolocated. One of them was geolocated here, another one was geolocated exactly in this point. So the Russians secured. We believe that there are still pockets of resistance all over the entire territory of Yablunovka. We believe that Ukrainians still control this part of the settlement to the north of this river, and we believe that Ukrainians still control this, the most northwestern part of the settlement, in the vicinity of these 2 strongholds, despite the fact that several mappers reported that these territories were taken by the Russians long time ago. So, as summarizing everything, we see that by the end of the 24th of July of 2025, the Russians secured around 90-95% of the settlement, and the Russians most likely will continue their offensive operation in coming days and hours. Now it seems that the Ukrainians most likely would be forced to fall back from the settlement of Alexandra Kalinova, because now, after the fall of the settlement of Yablunovka, Ukrainians will have no chances to hold their positions there. Most likely the Ukrainians would evacuate in the eastern direction, because currently I'm not sure whether the Ukrainians are able to evacuate themselves in the northern direction along N20 road, because they would be attacked by the Russians with short rifle fire. So this is the situation, and we can say that the western flank and the western part of the Kliban-Byksky pocket collapsed completely. The Russians managed to take this territory under complete control. At the same time, we see that the Russians continue their offensive operation in the southwestern part of the same pocket. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians improved their position significantly. According to information we have, the Russians launched this offensive operation around 4 days ago, somewhere on the 20th of July of 2025, and let's take a look at how exactly the Russian offensive in this area was developing. So this is a starting point. This is the end of the 20th of July of 2025, and this is most likely more or less plus minus exactly the moment when the Russians began their final battle for the settlement of Sherbinovka. By the end of the 21st of July of 2025, the Russians established complete control, almost complete control of the southern part. At the same time, the Russians improved their positions to the east of the settlement by taking under control several strongholds in the fields. By the end of the 23rd of July, we got report that the Russians secured completely the most southeastern part of the settlement. Several mappers reported that the Russians also secured a company strongholds to the west of the settlement of Sherbinovka. And as you can see, by the end of the 24th of July, the Russians managed to take this territory under complete control, and most likely the Russians will continue offensive. It seems that this defense line has collapsed as well. Ukrainians will not hold their positions. Most likely they will try to stabilize the situation around the villages of Katerinovka and Kliban-Byk, so we're talking about this territory. But the main problem is that this area is under complete Russian control. The Russians are bombing and attacking this territory with all type of calibers they have, which means that Ukrainians will not be able to feel themselves very comfortable in this area. Most likely the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back from this area as well, because with the Russian offensive operation in this area, according to information we have, the Russians continue their offensive operation in the area of Alexandra Shultina. And I would like to remind you that just yesterday, several very reliable pro-Russian resources reported that these days the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm Russian control over Alexandra Shultina. Furthermore, during the day we got lots of videos from the pocket to the north, more precisely from this dense network of the fortifications. As you can see, the Russians decided not to attack this pocket with these strongholds. The Russians managed to outflank the pocket from the north and from the south, and currently the Russians are trying to cut Ukrainian encoders by attacking this dense network of the fortifications from the north and from the south. And we believe that due to the situation in the area of Kliban-Byksky pockets, due to this critical situation for the armed forces of Ukraine, the Ukrainians from this pocket would try to evacuate themselves this coming night. So it seems that the entire front line to the south, southeast, and the southwest of the city of Constantinovka has collapsed, and most likely the battle for the city itself is going to start very soon. Furthermore, several sources reported that the Russians are about to finish the battle for the city of Chasiv Yar. Of course, I understand that this is not the first time when the pro-Russian resources reported about their almost reached the victory over the territory of the city of Chasiv Yar, and always after another report of this type, we see a small pause in this area that can last from one day to several weeks, and now we see that maybe this is the last time when the Russians reported about this upcoming victory. So let's wait and see, and if the city of Chasiv Yar falls, then the Russians most likely will rush in the direction of the city of Constantinovka without any chances for Ukrainians to hold their positions. So this is the situation in this area. Now let's move in the direction of N32 road and in the direction of the northeastern part of the city of Pokrovsk and Pokrovsk agglomeration. The Russians continue their offensive operation in the northern direction, trying to improve their positions and trying to take under complete control this defense belt. The Russians are about to finish the situation. I would like to remind you that just yesterday several pro-Russian resources reported that the villages of Pankovka, Vladimirovka and Shakhova were already taken by the Russians, but as for the end of the 24th of July, we still haven't received anything that can confirm this, but at the same time we have some changes on the ground in Russian favor according to different sources. According to neutral mappers, the Russians secured these fields and these strongholds and managed to improve their positions significantly. But telling the truth, this is not the most important piece of news from the northeastern part of the Pokrovsk agglomeration. The most important news is coming from the city of Novoekonomichne. Telling the truth, just a minute before I started making this video, some very reliable pro-Russian resource reported that the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to establish complete control over the city by the name of Novoekonomichne. So as for now, we are just talking about this. I'm just announcing this for you. Most likely, and there was a video published for this. The video was published by these AT's brigades, which is responsible for offensive operation. I watched this video before I started making this video, but during that video we had just a lot of episodes. We have just a lot of episodes of how the Russians were attacking Ukrainian positions with drones, with artillery, and not even a single episode with Russians with flags. But anyway, this report was made by a very reliable resource, so we believe that tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm complete control over this territory. And we understand that if Novoekonomichne falls, this is the beginning of a complete collapse of the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration. Telling the truth, there are too many fogs of war above the city of Pokrovsk and Pokrovsk agglomeration. It's still unclear the situation, the complete picture in the northeastern part of the agglomeration. We don't know for sure about the village of Novoekonomichne, and of course it's completely unpredictable situation in the southwestern part of the city itself. Whether the Russians control this part or not, nobody knows. Maybe just Zelenskyy, Syrsky and soldiers on the ground, and of course Russian generals who are responsible for this offensive operation. But telling the truth, it seems that the city of Pokrovsk is going, the battle for the entire agglomeration is going to be the fastest battle since the beginning of the special military operation, much faster than the battle for Bakhmut, for the city of Mariupol, and probably much faster than the battle for the city of Toretsk and Severodonetsk, Lysychansk, and many others. And the most important is that most likely the Russians, due to the situation that they are about to encircle the city, will be able to save these constructions, buildings, houses in the territory of agglomeration for civilians in the future. So the Russians, it seems that trying to save the city agglomeration itself with the purpose to allow civilians to return back to the city in the future after war ends, or after the Russians are able to push Ukrainians as far as possible from the current line of combat contact. As for the South Donetsk direction, the Russians continue their offensive operation in the western area, trying to get as many as possible villages and to shorten the distance with all these villages. But telling the truth, there are too many villages in this area, and it will take hundreds of days for the Russians to walk through every single village with the purpose to take another village, another settlement in this area. As we discussed, the next target, big target for the Russians, are the settlements of Gulyai-Polye, Pokrovsk, and Novopavlovka. Maybe a few more villages like Velika Mikhailovka, which are more or less big when talking about square kilometers. But until these villages, is going to just be a regular military routine when the Russians will reduce one village after another till ruins, obviously, and when Ukrainians will fall back from one village in the direction of another. As for the Zaporozhye direction, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions once again by taking under complete control several positions further in the northern direction from the settlement of Kamenskaya. The sources are saying that the next days the Russians are going to make first attempt to attack this third micro district, which looks like something like mini Uglidar, but in this area. So as we can see, the situation remains tense for Ukrainians and especially for Zelenskyy. I'm not sure whether he understands what exactly he's going to do and what exactly he's planning to do in the future. So anyway, let's wait and see, and most likely we're going to get answers to these questions in the upcoming days. And that's it for this today. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.